Howdy, howdy, howdy. It is Susan with Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks.
And it's Monica.
And we're coming to you to cover the things that are natural, cultural, and historical in our world today.
Yes, we are.
And I'm so excited for this episode. But then as I was preparing for this episode today, I'm like, oh, I pray that I do it justice.
Oh, no. It's one of those kind of parks.
Well, it's the most visited park in the United States.
Oh,
It
okay.
gets over 12 million visitors a year.
Holy. All right. We have our work cut out for us.
Yes, we do. So
where are we going?
we are going to the Great Smoky Mountains.
Woo!
The Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Woohoo!
Which is my favorite park.
Really?
Yeah, it is my favorite park for a myriad of reasons, and I'll get into some of that, but it is a really nice park, and it is I can see why millions of people go and visit it. Now, I don't know if that 12 million is an accurate figure. And I say that because it's a little over 500,000 acres.
Right.
It's got 4 different visitor centers. I don't know how, because usually when they count people that come in through visitor centers and stuff, they're normally clicking, right? But if you visit all 4 visitor centers, do you count us 4 times? I don't know how they do that. Do you know how they count people, visitors?
I have no idea. Especially not for national parks.
Well, because it's one thing you can, like if there's a gate that you go through and you have to pay money to get into, it's one thing they can count people who come in that way.
Right.
But they don't have that at the Smoky Mountains. So it's just a highway that goes basically through the park, bifurcates the park, and you've got 4 different visitor centers. So you wonder, how are they counting the 12 million people that actually go? So I don't know the answer to that.
And I wonder too if in an area that large there aren't other roads that could possibly make inroads into the park.
Yeah, because there are other inroads into the park that you can kind of get into different sections of the park.
Right.
But I don't know where they're going to count those people.
Yeah, exactly. Like if there's trailheads, because I know there are some places where, there might be trailheads on the side of the highway that you're not actually having to stop at the visitor center, but you can start hiking there. So
yeah. And there's plenty of that there too. So
I'm sure. Yeah.
So anyhow, let's talk a little bit about the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So it was established in 1934, and it covers, so it sits kind of, it's shared basically half and half between Tennessee and North Carolina. And as I said, it's a little over 500,000 acres, and it is the most visited national park that we have in the United States. And again, it was also designated as a World Heritage Site. So it's an UNESCO site.
That's cool.
Well, it's UNESCO, and it's an International Biosphere Reserve.
Ah, okay.
Which, the reason why I talked earlier about, I pray that I can do this park justice, is that one of the things that this park really has is so much history of the place. And the history goes back so far. I mean, it just goes back over a century. It's like not centuries maybe, but over a century definitely. So, we're talking like, 1700s. We know that the Cherokee Indians were occupying this space. And then slowly the European folks came in and were like, well, we want this fertile land. We want to do our farming, right? And this is where the Trail of Tears basically began for the American Indians, in that they were pushed out, and many different types of tribes were pushed out, like the Creek, the Choctaw, and the Cherokee. I think there were 5 tribes that got pushed out and ultimately were pushed over into Oklahoma. So then you have these settlers basically that came into this space and started making it their home. It's in the Appalachians, right? So it's in the Appalachian Mountains, and they then started making this home.
Okay.
So
Yeah. No, I was just going to say this really is a park that's been on my list, and I want to go there. My wife went with her mom, and she said it was the most gorgeous park she had ever been to. They rented a cabin and they went hiking and stuff through there, and yeah, and ever since we had talked about it, and that one day we would go back and rent the cabin. We just never got around to it, so it remains on my list, and it's someplace that I'd like to go see.
yeah, it definitely should be on anybody's list to
Yeah.
go to this park, just because it is as beautiful as I'm sure she described it. Um, and it is particularly, for me, beautiful in the fall, because I love fall colors.
That's when they
And
went. Yes.
oh, yeah.
The
You,
pictures, I saw all the pictures and I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
because you really can't beat that view. I mean, you really
Yeah.
can't. Now, these are the Appalachian Mountains, right? So this mountain range that basically, cordons off the east coast, right? The east side of the United States to the west
Hmm.
side of the United States in a way, right? And it's amazing to think about these Appalachian Mountains, that they are like over 400 million years old.
Yep. Once again, too big for my brain.
Well, the part that makes that interesting, and this is where context really matters. Context matters in terms of, we're talking about this mountain range being 400 million years old. Compare it to the Rocky Mountain range, right? Which is huge and long, right?
Yes.
That's less than 100 million years old.
Yeah.
So when we look at these two mountain ranges that we have here in the United States, huge, right? The Smoky Mountains, or the Appalachian Mountains that go through here, they're more rounded mountains because they've had a few more million years to be eroded upon, right?
Right. Right.
And so they don't look as sharp and jagged as you look at, like, say, the Rocky Mountains.
Right. Yeah.
I
I always
think
found
that's
that
cool.
interesting because, you always have a picture of mountains in your head, and it's based on drawings and paintings that you see, and they're always drawn and painted as pointed objects with snow-capped peaks.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
true.
that is our point of reference, I think, in general. So when you see pictures of the Smoky Mountains, they don't look anything like what you would anticipate a mountain range to look like based on what
No.
we are, exposed to. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I find that I was just amazed by the fact that there's that many million years that separate these two different mountain ranges, and that's why when you look at the Appalachian, you're like, well, sure, these aren't that big of mountains, but they really kind of are big mountains. They're just been eroded for millions more years. So,
That's a really good point because you don't think about that.
no,
Yeah.
you don't. I mean, everybody thinks about the Rockies. Everybody thinks about, the sharp and jagged mountains. And so,
Right.
yeah, so these mountains that we have with the Appalachian Mountains that go through the Smoky Mountain, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, they they're like of an old forest. So we talk about second growth forest. We talk about old forests. They had a
Hmm.
lot of that. So when we had the Cherokee that lived there, got pushed out by the settlers, right, and then they started making their homesteads, and then you started having these logging companies coming in. Wonderful place to go pull down a bunch of trees, and so they would clear cut, like clear sheer sides of mountains,
Yeah.
um, to do their logging activities. And it was because that started to happen, that almost sounded like I was that started to happen that started to happen, that there became a concern about too much logging in the area, and that it was going to ruin the mountain and the
Yes.
communities that were there.
Well, not only that, I imagine that there is an impact ecologically when
Oh yeah.
the root systems are doing something down there to help the mountains. I mean, what happens with erosion? But I know back then nobody was really thinking about it that way. It was just we need wood
Well, it was a
and we make
business,
money.
and yeah, it was a business first
Yep.
probably, and yeah, they needed the wood in order to make the money, and we weren't thinking about what the preservation needed to be. I think about much in terms of, like, when we talked about the Redwood National Forest. the cutting down of the redwoods back in the day seemed like the thing to do was great sturdy wood. Why don't we just do it? And so they started
Right.
doing that until we were like, oh, no, no, no. We're never going to get these trees back like they were.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I'm glad that started to come to mind like, oh, we need to really preserve this land.
Yeah.
And so, and I just want to go back to, as we talk about the Appalachian Mountains, because like the Great Smoky Mountains, people wonder, like, why do they call it the Great Smoky Mountains? Do you know why they call it the Great Smokies?
I imagine it's because when the pictures I've seen, they have that kind of like layer of mist or fog that looks almost smoky when you see it.
Yes. So
I don't know what causes it. I'm not that I don't know.
Yay, Monica. So it was the Cherokee that actually came up with the description, and it was specifically for it's the vegetation that emits kind of the moisture that creates kind of like this fog/smoke that is what you see, this kind of mist it's a natural vapor that's released by this vegetation.
Right.
But that's what creates this kind of blue-gray mist that floats over the ridges. So it's that thing. So like if you ever seen like, a lot of people when they do pictures of the Great Smokies or they paint pictures or whatever, you kind of see these shadowy mountains kind of like, in layers. That's why. So, yeah.
Is that one of the areas? Is that a rainforest?
It's not a rainforest per se.
Okay.
They do get, I think some areas get like over 80 inches of rain in a year, but.
I remember reading, and I don't remember if it was about mountain ranges or if I was reading some other book, maybe that book that I told you about, the big fire in Canada.
Yeah.
But I remember reading about an area where whatever was going off was coming up, and the cloud layer was so thick that it was just getting caught and coming back down.
Wow.
That's what you remind. I don't know. I got to look that up. I'm trying
to
think.
It was kind of recycling itself.
Yes, and I can't remember if that was about fire or water. If that makes any sense. Anyway, it just popped up in my head when you were talking about the release of whatever from the plants and stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah. So then the other thing, so again, we had the logging communities and everything, and right when it was being considered like we need to protect this area, one thing I really had not known or appreciated enough about was that the Smokies were largely privately owned farmland, right? And it was logging territory. And so over 1,200 families had to sell their land, and with donations, the states, Tennessee, North Carolina, were able to purchase this land and then give it to the federal government to then make into a national park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, some people were okay with, they could see that with the logging, there became more communities and that families, kids would start moving out of the area and go into other cities and stuff. Right. And so you were starting to lose some of that, the culture inhabiting that area.
Sure.
And so, yeah, some of the families were okay with, just buy me out and then I'll move to a city nearby or whatever and continue with my life. Other families were not so happy about that happening. And ultimately, they were able to bargain with the federal government that they could kind of have, I don't know what they called it, if it was like a life lease or something, that you could stay in your home as long as you're alive. And then when you pass away, it'll be turned over.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I guess that's somewhat of a compromise because some of these folks, generations of families have lived on this farmland that, you can't just take it from them. Paying them any amount of money is not really what it is that
it's not about the money.
Right. It's not about the money because they have, family cemeteries, family plots that are all around there. And churches and schools, these were whole communities.
Point in fact, I just saw an article. I just saw the headlines. I didn't finish reading the article about a mother and daughter in Kentucky, I believe, that turned down something like $26 million for their property. They wanted to put data centers there. And they were like, nope, not selling.
Yeah. Again,
so, More
Well,
power
and
to
in
them.
yeah,
I
well,
get it.
I'm always thankful for the people who donate their land, right? In this
Of
case,
course.
these folks were bought out by the states so that the states could purchase the land and then turn that over to the federal government. But it's because all that was able to happen that we can now enjoy the Smoky Mountains,
Right.
right?
Right.
So thankful for that.
Yeah.
Now, while I've always been in the fall whenever I go to this park, the spring I have been in May too, so I guess that's kind of spring before summer. Um, it's very green
No
and
doubt.
humid,
Yeah.
green and humid and not fun. But because of this, and there's so much water that runs through the area that they have like 1,500 flowering types of plants that are out there, 124 type of species of trees, lots of reptiles and amphibians. They have like everything out there. It's like its own little ecosystem. Thus, it's an UNESCO site. And of course, they have bears. They have bears out there too. So
Sure.
yeah,
Bigfoot.
I don't think we saw Bigfoot out there.
Uh, but I bet you there's been sightings.
Maybe, or maybe not. But it's a very rich kind of
Yeah.
place. They ain't none. They ain't no Bigfoot. So anyhow, so now that's kind of like the background of what this Smoky Mountains is. Cracking yourself up, aren't you?
I do it. I do it just to watch you get thrown off your game.
Watch me roll my eyes. Not
I
Bigfoot
can't
again.
help it. Sorry.
So that's kind of the history of the park. Okay, so now you think about, okay, now if I'm going to go visit this park, one of the important things you have to remember, I wonder if I have it, because I have lots of things to share with people, but
Really?
I know, talk about a shocker. I know. So there are 4 visitor centers in the Smoky Mountain National Park. And if you think about the park, there is a major highway, 441, that goes through the park. So that's the way you're going to traverse the main road through the park and then take off side chutes, whatever, to get to different places. But with the 4, there's one at the beginning, there's one at the end, and there are 2 in the middle. So you've got 4 different places you can go to visitor centers, and they're all important places. So bear that in mind when you're going. Nowadays, when I had been, you didn't have to do parking tags, but you have to buy a parking tag. If you're going to be in the park for more than 15 minutes, you need to buy a parking tag. But what I say to you is that you really have to plan what you're going to do when you go to that park, because it's busy and there's a lot to cover. Again, only 522,000 acres or something, but there's a lot of sections that you want to get to, and they have a lot of hiking available to you.
Well, I can imagine that is probably the main reason that people go there.
I don't
Are
know.
there other things to do besides hiking?
You can hike, you can fish, you can horseback ride, you can do driving tours like.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a Roaring Fork auto tour. There's a Cades Cove tour you can take. Okay, and I'm just gonna say, because I got these 4 little handy dandy little books when I went, and I think I must have bought like some maps or something that I got these books.
Sure.
These are the best books ever because you can really get the history of this. Now, Cades Cove is the one place that people talk about the most, Cades Cove. It has a lot of historic structures. There are like, I don't know, 90 historic structures that are in this park from when the people.
Sorry, is that a driving tour or a hiking tour?
Both.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so,
go ahead.
And I say that because that's important. But it has like 90 historic structures throughout this park, right? And a lot of it sits within Cades Cove. Now, what the park has done, because Cades Cove is kind of like a turn unto itself. When you're going to Cades Cove, you're going to Cades Cove. On Wednesdays during the peak season, so basically kind of like, May to September-ish,
right?
They close off every Wednesday so that it is a no vehicle loop.
Oh,
so
wow.
People can bike or hike.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is really nice because it gets really congested. So when we had gone, we went on an open day that we could drive. And all it takes, And you can always tell when the traffic is stopped, somebody sees an animal. And sure enough, when we had gone, traffic was getting stopped up because there were some black bears that were there that
Wow.
everybody was
Okay.
stopping and looking at. So,
Yes.
but it's one of the coolest places though to go because it's one, really pretty. Two, you get to go to that visitor center. Three, you get to see historic structures that are right there by the visitor center. And then you get to see animals.
Nice. Have you been to all 4 visitor centers?
Oh yeah,
Of course you have.
of course.
Of course. Why do I even ask?
Well, because you have to get things like,
Superfluous.
so I have this little book. It's a national park, Smoky Mountain, and it's a cute little book. It's like, look, I mean, it's like the size of my hand, right?
Just tiny.
But it's got all the national parks in it, so you can see little trails and stuff. But because Great Smoky National Park, Mountain National Park, has a lot of trails, there's a whole book you can buy that has all the hiking trails.
Wow. Okay.
And this is like if you can find this book is like the best book for hiking trails in the Great Smoky Mountains because
Awesome.
it gives you all the trails and it gives you, let me see if I can show this. It gives you pictures of like elevation and
Oh,
stuff.
nice. Nice. That's
So
great.
that you really have an idea of what it is that you're getting into. So
Is that like a national park publication, or is that something that could be found pretty much in any bookstore?
I don't know because I bought it at one of the visitor centers.
Does it say
But
who the publisher is on the inside?
Great Smoky Mountains Association.
Okay.
And it's a nonprofit. So my
Okay.
guess is
Well,
that
just
they
in
work with
case
somebody to
anybody
do that.
wanted to search
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Can you
That's
put it
what I'm
up one
thinking.
more time so people can catch the title? There you go. Hiking Trails of the Smokies. All right.
And there's the SKU was $22 when I bought it. I don't know how many
All
years
right.
ago.
There's the skew. Excellent.
So anyhow, because we went on so many trails there, and you can actually hike a part of the Appalachian Trail.
That's what I was going to ask next. That was my next question. Can you hike a portion of the Appalachian Trail?
Yes, you can. So
Okay.
you can hike a portion of the Appalachian Trail. You can get to the highest point in the park. So Mount Mitchell is the highest point on the Appalachian mountain range.
Mm-hmm.
What used to be called Klingman's Dome, which has now been changed, the name has been changed to Kuwohi. It is the highest point of the park. I'm glad that they changed the name because now it's a Cherokee name, which
Oh,
it
I
should
imagine
be.
we'll be changing it back very soon.
Denali is still Denali to me. I'm just saying. And will
Me
forever be
too.
Denali. But it's now Kuwohi, which was Klingman's Dome. And Klingman, while he was a U.S. Senator, he was also a Confederate general of some sort. So I'm glad that we changed the name back to what it should have been from a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you'll want to go up Klingman's Dome now. Or Kuwohi, I'm just going to say you're going to huff and puff going up because, well, I did. Because it is pretty steep. I think it's
You
like
may
a half a
not, but
mile.
I did.
I am not ashamed to say I had to stop many times because it's a half mile hike, but you're going basically up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to want to do that. There's a hike.
There's no shame in that, because I mean, if you want to do it, you're going to find a way to do it.
Yep.
And if you have to stop every 5 steps and catch your breath, then you do it. Eventually, you're going to get to the top and you're going to get a great view and you're going to be able to say, I did this. And I think it's even better for you or for when we do stuff like that. It's just a psych for us, man. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there.
Amen, sister, because I literally, there comes a point on there. I mean, I can hike a few miles and stuff. And I can do some elevation, but this was much more than what I really thought I could do.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. And it's always that payoff. It's like, I'm willing to go through that and stop every 10 steps if I have to.
Yes.
And I had people that were willing to stop with me or not stop with me. And it didn't matter to me. I knew where they were going. I was eventually going to make it there. I wasn't worried.
Yep.
So responsible, not rescued. So anyhow, you got to do that. There's another trail called Laurel Falls, which is a couple mile trail. It's got a little bit of elevation to it, but the payoff at the end was Chef's kiss. It was really worth it because it's
Nice.
beautiful, because there are a lot of falls that are in this park.
Nice.
There are other hikes you can take. They're along the river. So you'll want to, again, this is why I say you have to pre-plan and make sure that you get your visitor's guide, because you have to plan where you're going to spend your time. Otherwise, you're going to be driving up and down that road, spending lots of hours.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
And you need a trail map.
Of course you do.
Because when you pick up your brochure, you then need to pick up your trail map and map out what you're going to do.
Trail maps are a necessity if you're in a place like that. I mean, if you're going someplace that only has one or two trails and you know that they're in, out, and they're not connected, you don't really have to worry about it.
Yeah, those
but
are
when
pretty
you've got a
straightforward.
huge network of trails and they crisscross and they, everything is different on one than the one you're on, you've got to sit down and really take a look at those trail maps and figure out where you're going and how you're going to get there, and get yourself, I say you use the trail map. If you've got a topographical map you can take.
Oh yeah, that'd be
and then
good
if
too.
you've got something like All Trails on your phone, redundancy, especially when you're hiking out in a place where you may not have access to emergency personnel or emergencies, in an emergency situation. Plan ahead.
There are parts of that park that we don't have signal. There are parts that obviously you do. Driving through on the main road, you're going to have mostly have signal, right? But once you start taking the turnoffs to different sections like Cades Cove or what have you, you really start losing touch with having signal. Much in the same way that you want to make sure you get gas before you come in the park, because you're going to be driving around a bit. And it's very worth it, but you just have to be prepared. So you plan your day of how you're going to go in, where you're going to go, how much time you're going to spend. And again, because it tends to get crowded, you have to be really prepared for that. So you either go really, really early or you go in the afternoon, kind of what you normally have to do for these parks.
Yeah. And again, to remind everyone, if you're doing something that's off the beaten path, leave a note on your car. Make sure that somebody knows where you're going, which trail you're going, and try not to deviate from that, because if something happens and they have to come in and get you, they're going to want to know exactly kind of what area to be looking in. Yeah. So don't forget that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Don't forget that. And, the more that you can know which visitor center that you're at, because again, you got Sugarlands, which is kind of by the Gatlinburg. You've got Oconaluftee, which is more by the North Carolina. So that's the ends. Then you figure out those other two visitor centers. One's at the Kuwohi and one's at Cades Cove. That at least gives you some markers to know where you're dealing, right? In case you were to get lost. But this park really has a lot of different sections to it, and they name them all sorts of things. The Kuwohi is one of them, obviously. Cades Cove, Fontana, Deep Creek. I mean, so there's so many different names to different parts of the park, because there are so many. And so many places you can just kind of go out and do your hiking and enjoy nature.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds great.
It really is. So I also recommend that if you're going at any particular time, the fall is the most beautiful time, but beware, you might get some rain and stuff, but do not let that deter you, because it's just misty rain. It's not usually thunderstorms at that point.
I was going to say, I don't know where exactly DJ and her mom were camping, wherever the cabin was. She said that because now my mom-in-law is still here, but my wife isn't, but they were, good sized women, big women. And and her mom did the rental without really kind of knowing. And they rented like a big, car, like a big car. And Dee said that wherever it was the cabin was, they had to go up these mountain roads. They got there at night. It was kind of rainy, and they had to go up these mountain roads with these switchbacks. And she said it was the worst car for it, because it could, at one point they got stuck in the mud, and her mom was like, you need to get out and look at this. And she was like, why do I have to get out? It sounded like a comedy. And we had just first started dating at that time. So, it was pretty funny. Something to keep in mind, definitely. Yeah. Maybe not a place that you want to get to at night.
That's probably
a little early and.
Yeah, that's probably a good point, not to get there at night. Well, because depending upon where you're staying now, a lot of people stay in Gatlinburg, which I'm just going to say Gatlinburg is, when I've been asked to describe Gatlinburg, I think of it as a mix between a Las Vegas and a New York City.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going at any of the peak time, which is going to be, May to, September, it's going to be packed with a bunch of people.
Yes.
It's going to
Yeah.
feel like you're in the middle of a huge city, people walking everywhere, lights and signs and things, just stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So bear that in mind. Or you can stay a little further out and stay like in Pigeon Forge, which is not a bad drive to get into the park at all. Pigeon Forge, we stayed at like a rental house, and it kind of what you were saying is that we had to go some steep, switchbacks and stuff. And
Right.
you're like, oh, I do not want to do this at night because
Yeah.
there are no lights
Exactly.
out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plan ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Plan ahead, and be mindful about where you are. But I have to say, it was beautiful out there. So at night, everything is so wonderfully dark because
Nice.
there's no intrusion out there hardly. So
Nice.
yeah, but lots of places you can stay around there. And especially if you're bringing kiddos and stuff, there's so much to do because Dollywood is out there. I mean, so there's
Right.
lots of different things to do with, in addition to going to the park. So
Right.
it's something to consider, especially on that Gatlinburg side, on the Tennessee side. If you do the North Carolina side, it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit more muted in terms of like that high energy kind of place. So just
Right.
bear that in mind.
Since we haven't talked about hiking parks in a long time, or parks where there's a lot of hikes available, I just want to remind everybody that if you go to the website and go on our blog, we do have downloadable checklists that are free for you to help you prepare for your hike. And I think there's a link to national parks, and they have their own like little information set up that explains to you what you need to be prepared for also.
Yeah.
And maybe a little you've done this, like a little bit of information on how to be prepared for bears, because this is a bear place.
It is a bear place, so you want to have your bear spray. The
Maybe
Rangers
put a
are
bell
really good
on your
though.
walking stick.
Yes. The Rangers are really good though, because there's an area by the Oconaluftee Visitor Center. There's like a meadowy kind of area that always has elk, tons of elk. Tons of elk go out there, right? And so the Rangers are really good about keeping people at bay and, slowing down the traffic that goes through that area. They do the same thing. As soon as there's a sighting of a bear, they're going to close a trail. So that's why you always check into your visitor centers, because they're going to tell you what trails are closed, whether it's for bear activity or for other reasons like water or, heavy rains or whatever the case might be.
Right.
So bear that in mind as well.
Yeah. And also check the website, because the website usually also lists trail closures and anything that's impacting the park. So every step of the way, check and be prepared before you head out to places like this.
There's a reason they put that information out there.
That's right.
So there you go. All right. Well, I think that hopefully I have done the Great Smoky Mountain National Park justice, because it really is a beautiful park that I highly recommend to everybody, and particularly to go in the fall, because it is just beautiful.
I'm looking forward to going there.
One day we might have to make a trip up there.
I might have to.
All right. Well, Monica, anything else you'd like to add?
No, Susan, I think I've said everything. Although I was thinking about that rain thing, and it was fire. That's what it was. It was that book.
So the fire would go up and come back down?
There was so much. I have to look up the name of this book that I read for one of my book clubs, but it was about this huge fire that happened in Canada, and it happened in a place where they were doing what is it called? That nobody fracking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, it was just a mix of the worst circumstances there could possibly be. And it was I think it's the largest fire that's ever happened on the continental US. And there was like a whole bunch of things that happened, but I remember reading about it thinking that was the first time I think that they spotted fire tornadoes.
Oh yeah.
And also what I remember the author talking about was that there was such a heavy cover of mist and water that when the fire would go up, it would hit that and come back down. It was just the worst conflagration. And I know this is a total aside, but that's what I was thinking of when you were talking about that tent.
If you find that link or know what that book is, then I'll put a note here into our little podcast.
I will look for it. I read it last year, and but yeah, I'll take a look for it.
Okay, cool. All right.
just in case.
So, add something.
Yeah, something interesting.
Okie doke. Well, then I have nothing else until I guess next time. So what do we want to say, Monica?
Hike your own hike.
All right.
And
We'll
see
see
y'all
y'all
next
later.
time. Bye.
Bye.